There we go. William, it's all yours.
All right, can everyone see my
Yep.
cover screen here?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Nice to meet everyone. I also live in Colorado, Boulder, so it's great to talk to some fellow Coloradans. I'm with EVMatch, and we're the shared EV charging network. So I'm going to get into how it works and how you guys can join or participate if you'd like. So I don't need to tell you that obviously electric vehicles are on their way. 125 million EVs projected by 2030 worldwide, and that's probably a conservative number, with states like California and New Jersey banning gas vehicles by 2030. So excited to see more states do that, including Colorado. But as many of you probably also know, one of the biggest challenges for the EV industry is the charging infrastructure, which causes range anxiety, especially if you're a renter or an apartment. These people are obviously less likely to have charging access. So that's where EVMatch comes in. We decided to launch a peer-to-peer network to try to drive the mass adoption of EVs. And so we created an app to enable public charging. Hopefully that's convenient, affordable, and kind of the core of our product is it's reservable. So you can use our reservation feature. And I'll get into how that's very handy, especially for renters and for multi-unit dwellings. So here's how it works. If you haven't seen our app, charging hosts can list their home, business, or multifamily charging stations on our app. So similar to listing your home on Airbnb, they input station details like the location, how often they want it to be available. So maybe every day of the week, or maybe just on the weekend, etc. And then set a price so that they can recoup electricity costs and maybe earn a little profit. Then on the flip side, EV drivers can download the free EVMatch app and sign up to find and reserve those chargers that are being shared and crowdsourced. So here's kind of some screenshots of the app. EV drivers, similar to a ChargePoint app or PlugShare, can find a station that works for them on the map, click on it. They can also filter for different details, like, maybe you're only looking for a Tesla plug, or maybe you don't want a Tesla plug. Maybe you want a specific price or a specific power output. You can filter for all of those things. The driver can then reserve and pay for the station just, with a few quick clicks. And so then it's less of a guess or a gamble when you show up to a charger, that it either works or is available. So you're reserving it, ensuring that you have that place. And then, by offering reservations and payment processing, you can choose to find the charger from wherever you are, regardless of, even if you have set out on your road trip, you could reserve it days or weeks in advance. If you're just reserving it before you go to work, you can do that easily too. So, these are the people that interact on our network. You have EV drivers who are looking for a place to charge. You have residential hosts. So that's any homeowner that wants to share their charger. It can be any type of equipment. So it can be, a ChargePoint home charger. It could be an NLX charger. It could be just a 240 wall outlet like a NEMA 1450, etc. There is an option to use the NLX juice box, and we do provide a $200 rebate for residential hosts now who want to upgrade to that charger. We have an integration with that hardware, so we can provide extra access control and metering. Commercial hosts on the far right, so that's any public facing location, such as a business, a church, or a multifamily building, do install one of our compatible chargers. So right now, that's the juice box. We're working on integrations with a few other chargers, including Siemens and hopefully Wallbox. They install those. We help them through the whole process. It's a large project management that we undertake to make sure that everything goes smoothly. We connect them to installers. They install this Wi-Fi enabled charger. They can then connect to their Wi-Fi to save money if they'd like, or they can use a cellular router to provide that connectivity. Then the software that we layer on top, again, offers those reservations. So at a multifamily property, this we've seen to be extremely helpful if the property can only afford or only has space to install maybe 2 or 4 chargers, but they have more than 10 EV drivers. Then the drivers can use our reservation system to efficiently share the chargers, and doesn't need to be some outdated system of a whiteboard somewhere determining who gets charged when, or people removing plugs from other people's cars. So that's an essential piece and very helpful for multifamily and for workplace. The access control, as I mentioned, so only people that pay to use the chargers at that specific time can actually pull electricity from the juice box. And as I said, payment processing, and last but not least, group management. So I'm going to go into what group management looks like right here. So this this feature allows a host, so a multifamily property manager or owner, or a business owner or an employer, to be incentivized to install chargers, because then maybe there's an opportunity to earn money, or at least to have more control over how the chargers are used. So for example, this is a multifamily property example. Someone could create a custom group for tenants or residents, and could make those chargers in that group available maybe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so all the time, and then set the price. I have 24 cents kilowatt hour here, but obviously that's more like a California price, really whatever they want. We help the property determine what to choose there. Tenants then are provided an access code for the group by the property owner or manager, whoever manages the chargers, and then they can have access to that charger. And other people on the EVMatch network would not see it and wouldn't have access to it unless they were given that access code. Then property manager or owner could create a public group if they'd like. So maybe they want to charge a higher price for fewer hours of the week. In this case, I set it very high, probably would never see it that high, but for level 2 charging. But for illustration purposes, you can see that you have a lot of customization and flexibility with our grouping feature. Some other properties that use this, definitely workplaces. So one of our customers is Bloomberg, and they provide different hours of availability and different features for employees at different times of day. So they're kind of trying to split up when people can use it. Fleet operators, hotels, and ski areas are a few other examples, but multifamily is certainly the most important. So, there are lots of different charging providers and networks out there, and we see ourselves as complementary, but we also are competitive with some of the others. And these are, some of the reasons that customers choose us. We are the most affordable option. That's because, of who our target market is. We're trying to serve the underserved segments, not the people who necessarily have the single family homes and can buy the Tesla and charge it easily there. We're trying to serve people who don't have their own garage, can't install necessarily their own charger. So our sharing network is a solution for them. And especially at a multifamily property, the budget's always pretty tight, especially post-COVID. So we're happy to be able to provide a price of about 30 to 60% cheaper than other charging networks to install and operate those chargers. We offer, actually some of the most advanced features, like I said, the group management and the reservations. You don't find that on other networks. And then, last but not least is secure payment processing, so that properties or homeowners that want to rent out their chargers can recoup the cost. So it's not just giving away free charging, which is kind of a no-go these days. I guess one thing I will add there is a feature to offer free charging if you want to, have it as an amenity for your employees or whatever. We do have some customers that do that, but that's just a choice. So here's the juice box. I think maybe some of you might be familiar with it. It's a leading EVSC, kind of up there with ChargePoint. And the great thing is really how affordable it is, and how powerful it is. Up to 48 amps. And anything else I want to mention about that? We've been working with them for a long time, and it's a great piece of hardware. So we're happy about that, but we are happy to include more compatible hardware in the coming months. I do want to reiterate that if you're interested in hosting a home charger, it doesn't have to be a juice box. It can be any equipment, once again, and residential hosting is free to do. We just are trying to crowdsource so more people can access those chargers. So because on our network, any home or business can be a charging station, our solution really has this potential to create 20 times more public charging options immediately, rather than waiting for the private investment to physically build the infrastructure. Obviously, the level 3 charging, very important. We need to build it. But this is a way to accelerate the adoption of EVs if more and more chargers are quickly added to the network. So here's my contact information. If you want to learn more, check out our website, evmatch.com. My email's there, William@EVMatch. Fairly simple. The last thing I wanted to plug is, on top of maybe joining our network and so forth, we're always looking for partners to grow our shared network so that there's more charging availability. So we have an affiliate program. That could be anything from a nonprofit, like Sierra Club is one of our affiliates, to a private electrician company, and on and on. And we essentially pay our affiliates referral fees for every customer that signs up for EVMatch through their activities, through their email or whatever. So if you know of any organizations or companies that might be interested in partnering with us, A, to help expand EV charging, but B, also to earn a little money on the side, we'd love to talk to them. You could give them my email. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
I have a question. So probably it's a good idea to sign up for this in case you ever find yourself in a situation where you need it. Like I have, I'm sorry, a friend who drove to Laramie this weekend in her Leaf from Denver.
Wow.
I'm sorry. That's one question, like, or is it fast enough to sign up that if you ever found yourself in need, you could just sign up right then?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage you. It's not a large app. It can take up a lot of space. You could download it and have an account quickly ready to go. So I do encourage that. If you don't use it, you don't use it, and that's fine. You didn't lose any money because it's a free app. And then if you want to plan more of your trips, like you're saying, a road trip, it makes a lot of sense to be able to look at the map, and it's easier to see all of the details about all the chargers if you have an account. So that'd be my suggestion.
I have a second question. I have a bunch of EVMatch cards that you or somebody gave me to display at some EV.
Oh yeah.
Over at Veg Fest or so. I don't know where. Are they still good? Is all the information on them still good? Because I probably still have 20 of them left.
Yep, all set to go. Feel free to distribute them however you can. Appreciate that. I'm flyering cars all the time.
I was distributing them for a while, but then probably 2 years ago, I kind of just stopped. But I'm surprised. I'm glad you're being successful because you've been around quite a while now, really. And
yeah, we are about 4.5 years old now. Most of our activity, as you can imagine, is in California, because that's just where the critical mass of EVs are right now. But I'm in Colorado, and we have a special interest in expanding in Colorado. We are a nationwide network as well. So as I mentioned, our Bloomberg customers in New Jersey, for example, we have a lot of customers in Chicago because we got a grant for that. we just won a California Energy Commission grant. We actually beat out ChargePoint for that, so we're really excited to deploy about 120 of those commercial chargers I was describing at multifamily properties in disadvantaged communities in California. So we have a lot going on. There's a lot of space for many companies, which is exciting. And yeah, we hope to keep chugging along.
So William, this is Nick. So I've got a question maybe regarding rates or something. I've got, just for perspective, I've got a Tesla, and when we supercharge, it's generally between 23 to 28 cents a kilowatt per hour, but that's a quick supercharge thing. Down here in Colorado Springs, I believe it's about 11 cents kilowatt hour for energy. You're looking at someone from a level 2 standpoint coming out to your house from a, say, residential, going to stay there 2, 3, 8 hours, I guess, across the day in your driveway or garage, or wherever you have it set up. What is a typical, I guess we had one of the members here also do a chat, markup that is acceptable? Because, I mean, you're not going to get up to a 23-cent kilowatt rate for a slow charge. I mean, that would seem counterintuitive unless these folks don't have any other way to charge cars.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. Pricing is something that we've been wrangling all along and trying to find the sweet spot, because you can see some hosts. So originally we had it's completely a marketplace. We were allowing sort of freedom for the host to choose the price. Obviously, what that led to, especially in California, was some extraordinarily high prices for level 2 charging, which just didn't really make sense.
Right.
So we have set some caps on that, and we're actually gonna release a new cap soon. But right now, the cap is that you can set a price and then mark it up 100%. You can choose your electricity rate, and then you can mark it up 100%. Right now, you could essentially double the cost. So if it's 11 cents, like you said, it could be 22 cents. That obviously is still too high for really reasonable charging. Like you said, if someone really needs a charger, like an apartment dweller, they might pay that. And we see in California all the time that multi-unit dwellers pay, upwards of 30 cents a kilowatt hour for level 2 charging. That's kind of normal as there's pressure on charging infrastructure. But we are not interested in price gouging or helping hosts price gouge. So we're going to set a new price cap in the coming, hopefully, month that is essentially either a 20 or 30% markup. So what that would look like, in Colorado, if it's like 10 cents kilowatt hour, you really wouldn't see more than 14 or 15 cents a kilowatt hour.
Does any of that money or some, or I mean, does anything go to EVMatch?
Yeah, great question. We are a for-profit company, so we do earn money. We charge a transaction fee that's paid by the drivers. The host doesn't pay that. So essentially, what happens is when you go to book a session and you choose, your session time, you will see the calculation. Okay, this much is the host fee, the electricity cost plus the host fee. This is the EVMatch transaction fee. Here's my total price. So our transaction fee is 20% paid by the driver. And then on the commercial side of things, we charge a subscription fee to commercial hosts. So like the property owners or the businesses, because we're providing a significant amount of project management and obviously all the support of the software and ongoing customer service. So those are the two places we earn revenue.
William, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So you say that you charge 20% of the total cost of the session, and so none of your devices actually measure the amount of electricity. You just predict based on the kind of car they have, or how are you figuring that out?
Great question. So we are able to meter through the juice box because we have that integration. If it's not a juice box, then what we're doing when you sign up as a host, you're entering all this information about your electricity. So your provider, your rate structure, your tier, all that stuff. So we can then, we have all that built into the app. And then the driver inputs information about their onboard charger and their battery size. So then we can calculate for a specific amount of time of use included, if there's time of use rates in the area, what the price would be for that session time.
So you're doing this I mean, if you're actually able to measure it with some of your devices, how can you charge up front when the person books the session your fee? Wouldn't you have to wait until after they're done to get a certain percentage of the total?
To get what our transaction price would be. So because our system right now is reservation based, and you can do a charge now option. I didn't mention that, but if you pull up to a charger that has, an ID similar to if you pulled up to ChargePoint and scanned your RFID card, you can enter an ID and charge right then and there. But by and large, people are using the service with reservations. So they're saying, I want this charger for 2 hours on this day, this time, this is how much it costs, and you pay that. And that is how the transaction, where the transaction fee is also determined.
Right. So you're paying up ahead. So if some of your chargers actually measure the amount of electricity that's dispensed and it's different than what you were expecting, is that settled up, or why haven't measured the amount of electricity if you're already coming up with a prediction and paying it ahead of time?
Well, we're measuring the cost of electricity because we're doing a handshake and communication with another piece of software that is controlling the energy output. So the software in the juice box. So we can meter from that side how much electricity is being dispensed, but we're also in our software telling you, okay, this will be the cost. If you want to reserve it, pay now. We are actually, but getting to your point, going to add essentially a true up function. So if people are not going to remain for their entire reservation, then we will see, okay, they charge, because we can see the exact session time, plug in, plug out time, and they charge for, an hour and 30 minutes instead of 2 hours. So they will be refunded that half hour of charging they didn't use.
Right. So you say in California, you can only charge as a host per kilowatt hour, whereas in other states, you can also charge per minute. So if somebody reserves and then leaves early, there's an opportunity cost that's lost because no one else could have reserved that time. And so is there any kind of compensation for those people if somebody leaves early?
For the drivers, you're asking compensation for the drivers?
No, compensation for the host who.
Well, the host would get paid. So if someone leaves, if someone leaves early, at this point, they are still being paid the full amount of the session.
Right, but once you come up with the true up thing.
With the true up, the true up will recompensate, not will recompensate the host as well. Yeah, it will be a double-sided recompensation.
So EVMatch will be eating it if somebody leaves early. Eating the loss.
Oh, the loss of time because the reservation space will be reopened.
Right, but if reservations are usually made in advance, and if someone leaves early, it's unlikely somebody else will show up unless it's a real high pressure area.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if it's using the juice box and we're metering it, and then we can do the true up and someone leaves. Yeah, no, this is great feedback. There's so many of these various scenarios that pop up. I guess I don't have a 100% clear answer for you. Obviously our goal is to be as supportive to the host as possible because they're the supply on our network. So I think that, there probably would be some eating of the cost if reservations are canceled, early at some point. If it's 10 minutes early, we're probably not eating the cost, but if it's an hour early, it probably would.
And so then my last question was about more information. So I noticed on the app, somebody was advertising a NEMA 1450 outlet. And that's great if you've got your own EVSE, or maybe you've got a Tesla with a converter, but depending on the orientation of the outlet and the height of the outlet, say you bring your own charger and plug it in, you don't want to hang it from the cord usually, or if the orientation's 180 degrees off, it's not good for your cord, so you need to bring a stand or something. So I'm wondering, is there any kind of more information than, okay, it's a NEMA 1450, here's a picture, here's how high it is off the ground, here's its orientation, is it GFCI'd or not? So I don't know if that's might be required on newer ones, but not on older ones. And what kind of voltage drop do people experience? So is there any kind of review information or additional information besides just NEMA 1450 or Chase 1772?
Yeah, so another feature we're working on soon, all of our hosts will have pictures of their EVSE on the listing. So that can be reviewed. And then that information is often provided in the private charge information. So we go through a pretty rigorous host quality control process with all of our hosts to check that information to make sure that it's accessible to all the cars that should be able to access it, to your point. So if there's height concerns, is there support for a charger if it's coming out of an outlet, and so forth. We do a lot of host quality control.
So is that information available before an individual makes the reservation, or only after you make the reservation would you get that information as a driver?
So essentially what we're doing is we're screening to make sure that every charger is safe. So then if there's special instructions, you would receive that before you book the reservation. Another thing to keep in mind is you can always cancel a reservation or at least 24 hours in advance. So if you determine something is unsafe, or you talk to the host and you're like, that won't work. So there are a couple of fail safes for some of those mechanisms.
And I'm just curious, are GFCIs required on NEMA 1450 outlets for charging in California these days?
I do not know the answer to that.
Or do you require it as part of your vetting process?
We do not require it at this point.
Okay, thanks.
William, regarding your expansion into Colorado, what are your plans for how this is going to roll out here in the state?
Yeah, so we rolled out, we launched Colorado in 2018. We got a Boulder Energy Challenge grant from the city of Boulder. And so, we were to some extent focused in the Boulder County area because we had funding from them. But we then have expanded kind of our marketing efforts and sales efforts to much of the state, but primarily the Front Range. And we're working with customers all the time on the Charge Ahead grant program administered by the state and by the Regional Air Quality Council. So, we have chargers up and down I-70 corridor in some mountain areas, and then a number of hosts on the Front Range. Colorado is probably one of the top 3 or 4 states for our marketing efforts. As I said, California is our top marketing effort, but the more that Colorado incentivizes folks to install chargers, the more active we'll be here. I think that the legislature did quite a bit this session, and I think there's more opportunity coming, and that the Charge Ahead grant happens, I think, 3 times a year. So that's a relatively large amount of the activity that we do in Colorado.
Okay, so when you say along the Front Range, I'm up here in Longmont. Do you have a presence here in Longmont?
I believe we do have a few chargers in Longmont because that was part of our push in Boulder County. I haven't actually looked super closely at the map in Longmont and Boulder County generally in a little while. So that's, something you could explore. So, like I said at the very beginning and at the end, expanding the network is really just a matter of support from partners and getting the word out because it is a peer-to-peer network. So spreading the word is kind of the most important thing. We do spend marketing dollars, as I said, but right now the critical mass of that's in California. So I'm not sure, if you have any suggestions for expanding the network in Longmont, working with the city of Longmont, et cetera, I'm certainly all ears.
Okay, I don't have any contacts personally, But there is a group here called Sustainable Resilient Longmont
Yes.
that I'm sure would have contacts. And in light of that organization, we're going to have a National Drive Electric Week event coming up here in the fall, and we would like you to join that.
Yeah, that would be great. I am familiar with that organization, and I've attended some events in Longmont for National Drive Electric Week in the past, so we'd love to do that again.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, William, it's Nick again. So obviously all of us are part of some sort of EV club, or we have EVs, I would imagine, that are on the call. Do you have more of those either business cards or trifolds or something that you can maybe ship to me for my EV events that we can present to our members and people interested in EVs? I mean, that's an organic way to say, hey, here's a new thing to think about and consider. If I give you my address or something, can you send me a packet of whatever, something simple, not big folder brochures, but I mean, I don't know if you have business cards with contact information, go on their website, whatever it is, but that's a way to organically help at least some of these clubs. And I don't know if Jay David already has some of those in he's part of our Colorado Springs EV club, but yeah, if you have something like that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we have that. Jill kind of mentioned it earlier. We have these 4x6 promo cards, kind of rigid cards that are really easy to distribute. So I can easily mail a bunch of those to you if you just want to. If you wouldn't mind sending me an email with your address, then I could do that when I get back.
Okay.
With regards to your expansion, have you reached into Wisconsin yet?
We've explored Wisconsin a little bit. And, I was on a webinar recently about the efforts there. I think by and large, they kind of have it's like their co-op model of their charging network. So they have a somewhat exclusive partnership with a charging provider, and they use equipment. I mean, I'm blanking on it, but at this point, they weren't super interested in kind of opening it up to other networks, from what the conversations I had. But if you have other information or other folks, I'd love to get in touch.
Well, I can send you an email regarding the Tesla Club of Wisconsin.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be excellent.
As well as the good folks at Midwest Renewable Energy Association. They host an energy fair every year that there isn't a pandemic. And they're a quite established organization in north central Wisconsin.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always interested in connecting to those groups in any state, to be honest. And Wisconsin sounds excellent. So if you wouldn't mind connecting me, I would greatly appreciate it.
So William, I've been a host for a couple of years and I haven't gotten a lot of traffic, and I think it's because I'm in Boulder, which has more EV chargers than it does gas stations. I've actually looked on the map. But where I think it would really be valuable would be in sort of out of the way places where there aren't public chargers available. So rural areas. I wanted to visit a friend of mine up in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and I couldn't go because there just wasn't enough charging there. So have you considered trying to get sort of have a campaign to try to get people in residential hosts in areas that are not covered by public EV charging?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. We're actually working on a Department of Energy grant with the University of Tennessee. So, this isn't Colorado specifically, but if we receive this grant, they'll be funding the deployment of, I believe it's 200 residential chargers that then will be on our network in rural areas in 3 southeastern states. And so that will be helpful, information to have and experience to have to then expand that strategy elsewhere, including in Colorado. It's kind of a chicken and the egg problem, just in terms of having enough EVs in an area for people to then want to spend money on the infrastructure. And so, we need more funding from the public sector to make that happen. And so we're always exploring ways to work with cities, municipalities, utilities, and state and federal government to do that. But we certainly do marketing pushes where we try to encourage, in rural areas to encourage more EV adoption, installing chargers. The barrier we've been up against really is that in rural areas, if you have a garage, you kind of have the opportunity to charge if you're going to buy a car anyway. People just haven't necessarily been buying cars in those areas. Whereas in the city, there are many people who want to buy an EV who live in a dense area where the number of chargers just isn't high enough. So I think that's just been a larger pull at this point. But we are actively working on a strategy to do more in rural areas. So yeah, I appreciate that feedback. And if you have, any ideas, or like I said, it's just about getting the word out. If people in rural areas that have a charger or would like to host, it's free for them to do it. We just need them to join, and that would help many EV drivers.
You see,
This is Jim at National Car Charging. I have 2 questions for you. One is, as you know, California requires a screen now for any charger that is collecting revenue from the general public, such as a common area in an apartment building. Juicebox is a great little product, but they don't have a screen. How do you get around that particular provision?
Yeah, it's something that every manufacturer is working on. No one maybe but Kidget is up to snuff with those really rigorous requirements from DMS in California. All of them are working on some screen or another. DMS has not come down on any of the networks yet and provided any penalties, but we're working on building some of our own screens, or working with partners to build screens, as well as working closely with our integration partners to develop their technology.
So essentially a ask for forgiveness instead of permission policy at this point.
It's definitely, that's one of those things where regulation is excellent, but when it stymies clean energy development, it's unfortunate. And DMS, I don't know if the CEC and DMS didn't work together, but that's what every networking manufacturer is doing at this point.
Question number 2. ChargePoint has had reservations for 10 years as a feature. We have about 6,500 ports across the country and about 800 customers. I can't tell you one customer that uses it. So I'm curious what your reservation uptake rate is on a percentage basis.
So can you, just briefly speak more about ChargePoint's reservation feature? You're saying that it's an add-on feature that people can pay extra for and use? Because I've never seen it in the software.
Yeah, because nobody uses it, but it's free to anyone that has a commercial networking plan.
Okay. And so that's interesting. We've won a number of projects against ChargePoint because they weren't offering because they didn't have the reservation. So I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to, but reservations are used by all of our customers.
Interesting. I think it's been so long, they probably just don't even publicize it any longer.
Yeah, I don't know if they really even have it anymore either.
Oh yeah, I can assure you they do. I see it every single day.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, so William, I've got another question, maybe just understanding the big picture here. I'm a resident, so I want to be a part of the program. I join the app, let people know, hey, I have a charger here. People find me, I set the rates with them. Is there any billing going between myself and you, or I just get my electric bill, I pay my electric bill, and part of my money is recouped from people using my charging network?
Yeah, the billing is happening. We're kind of the pass through. So we're collecting payments from the drivers. We're dispensing that payment to the hosts.
Okay, all right. So that's where that credit, if there's any credit that's due or something, that's how that might, because I'm still operating direct with my utilities. I, pay so much for electric, and they get the bill and I pay them. But you're paying us for the public use, I guess.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
William, with, I don't see my picture come up. Anyway, with PlugShare being bought by somebody, do you see a niche? I've seen some posts on Facebook where people think, okay, PlugShare is going to dump the residential customers. Are you seeing the niche to be able to jump in on that particular market?
Yeah, we have kind of always had a good relationship with PlugShare, and we always add our commercial hosts to PlugShare so that, it's just easier to find our chargers. And then we always encourage our residential hosts to list their chargers and then just link it to their EVMatch listing so that the payment processing can happen through the app. And that happens fairly often. Because PlugShare, has changed their approach a little bit. They're kind of more of a data seller, data aggregator now, and less in the residential space. So we tend to work together quite a bit and always encourage our hosts to also list on PlugShare.
Liam, hi, this is Jared. I've got a question. I am a hotel investment manager, and we've got 2 hotels in Colorado that actually offer free charging to hotel guests. But what we're finding is the word is getting out that we offer free charging, and so everyone is showing up and charging. So we don't want to start charging. We just want a way to make it so only hotel guests can reserve it. Is that something that your solution could maybe help fix?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect use case for our software. Right now the question is, what type of charging equipment do you have? We could only provide that functionality if you have a juice box at this point. And I'm guessing you probably don't have a juice box.
So it would require an equipment upgrade.
It would require equipment change at this point. Can you share what equipment you have? Because it might be on our roadmap to integrate with.
I think it's just kind of old G. It's not anything metered or anything. It's just
got it. It's like dumb chargers.
Yeah, residential chargers.
Got it. Yeah.
Anyway, we can take it offline. But
Sure.
Good to know. Yeah, maybe you and I should talk, because we also want to install chargers at some of our other hotels. So
okay, great.
An opportunity for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to chat.
Okay, perfect.
Shoot me an email.
Yep, we'll do.
Thanks.
Yeah, William, there's a couple of questions that are in the chat area. One of them is, what kind of protection do you have in place for your reservation if you get there and are unable to charge for whatever reason?
So we're very customer focused, and if something goes wrong, then we're always giving refunds as well as extra credit if that's needed. We don't see issues, especially on the residential side of the network, in that way very often. And on the commercial side of the network, a lot of our sites have multiple chargers. So even if one charger they're having trouble with, there's always another available. We're always doing a lot of quality control on the network to make sure the chargers are online or operating, and hosts are responding appropriately.
Okay. Can users add additional photos and comments about a station that they use?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's good to hear kind of that feedback because, you know, right now that's not built in as a feature. Like I said, the picture options are coming, but it's not like plug share where you can kind of add comments and say like the charger doesn't work or whatever, and then maybe take some new pictures and submit them. But what people can do is if the listing does have a plug share sister listing, then they could do it there as well. Right now, that's not a feature built into our app.
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, you can stop screen sharing that way.
Okay, great.
Everybody can kind of see everybody a little easier.
Oops, I put information so he could stop screen sharing, but I made a mistake. You see, William EVMatch. I totally spelled everything wrong. Fix it.
Well, you might, I don't want to say the last question, but another question. Everything kind of broods another idea here. Do we have to have extra liability insurance as a host because we do something like this, or is this?
You do not. You do not.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're just the intermediary on a marketplace, so we're not providing extra insurance coverage for any of our hosts. The expectation is that the host is benefiting here as well. So they are either using their general liability insurance or they've added new insurance. But typically, general liability insurance is what we see people use. Did I stop sharing? I'm sorry, I was having trouble.
Oh, I just learned something. I saw how I could do it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think because it was recording, I wasn't allowed to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having been an Airbnb host since the first 500 hosts in the world, I tell you that all that stuff about insurance and stuff could change and evolve as they got bigger and cities started to regulate that or whatever. But
I was more concerned of, someone plugs in and their car catches on fire. I mean, my car doesn't, but what if their car does? How does that? Maybe they have a bad charging system in their car.
Yeah.
Well, every homeowner has some kind of liability insurance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And something to keep in mind there, a charging station is a very elementary or basic piece of equipment. It's literally an on-off switch. All of the complicated AC, AC to DC conversions and everything, that's all happening in the car. The car is what's controlling all of that. So, typically that's what you're looking at.
I just didn't want another one of those bolts to catch fire and be in my garage or outside my garage, and I have to pay for it because
right. No, yeah, I hear that.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry, Lawrence. Didn't they have something like that with some bolts catching fire? There was something that they didn't want to have anyone fully charged in a garage now. Is a news story.
Yeah, they did, but EVMatch asks that you don't have a charger in a garage. They always ask you to run the cord outside the garage because they don't want people in your home or your garage. Is that correct, William?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, good.
But even a car in the, if the cord's not long enough and a car catches fire in the driveway, it could also catch the house on fire.
So the sign bolts not allowed is okay.
No.
They thought they fixed that problem with the bolts, but then they found a bolt that was at 70% and not charging that went up. But supposedly the software, well, it's not, I'm not sure, but my understanding is the software is supposed to catch that stuff before it happens, even if it's not at full charge.
When
But don't look
everybody,
just at bolts, those Kias were going up too, right? Oh, and those ICE cars, man, they go up all the time.
Yeah, that was just in the news. It could be any car. It was just that idea of what if a car is functioning properly and this happens. So yeah.
I have two unrelated questions to our whole topic at hand. When everyone's done, let me know and I'll ask them. You're done? I want to ask Lawrence if your Bolt has a windshield, not a windshield, a rear camera washer on it.
There's a rear windshield wiper. I
No,
think
the
with
camera.
washer, but the
Camera.
camera itself, no. And
Is that
I
an
do-
option? I know Bolt's the only car that has that, but I didn't know if they're standard or if it's an option you have to add on.
well, we've got the basic model. It's a
Oh.
lease. And I've seen a bee land on the camera. That was pretty cool, from
Cool.
inside the camera. But I don't know if there's a squirter on that or not. I assume not, but I haven't really looked carefully.
It's a cool feature. William, this is an interest of mine. It has nothing to do with charging. But I thought when you introduced yourself that you were from Colorado because natives tend to put the rad in Colorado, and you said Colorado. And then Kevin asked a question and kind of said Colorado. And then from then on, you were saying Colorado. So were you aware of that? And do you, I mean, I just find it so fascinating. I've been kind of studying this for a couple of years now. And the people coming from the outside, who are so many people coming to Colorado, they're really changing the pronunciation of Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think we're being influenced by that. And, to me, it's like saying Montana. I mean, like nobody would say that, but pretty soon when Montana gets all full of people from out of state, maybe they'll get changed to Montana too. Nevada put out a press release a few years ago saying we pronounce the name of the state Nevada, and all you East Coast journalists stop saying Nevada. I just wondered, did you?
Yeah, no, that's funny because it's been on my mind too. I'm from Breckenridge, and I don't I don't know. I think that I had some East Coast influence, and it led to Colorado, which is how you typically say it. But I've like tried to say Colorado more because I know it's more native.
Well, we don't really say Colorado, unless, but okay, interesting. That's interesting that you're aware of the whole issue. That's fun. Thank you guys for indulging me.
But the state is pretty rad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think we should start a campaign to put the rad in Colorado. Natives, a slogan, natives put the rad in Colorado. Jared Polis is from Boulder, and he used to say Colorado, and I hear that he always says Colorado now, Colorado. But then Ryan Warder on Colorado Public Radio says Colorado, like he really makes it Colorado. But I speak Spanish, and there's no reason in the world that A should be pronounced exactly the same way as that first O. It's not like giving any kind of nod to Spanish, because that would never happen in Spanish. You'd either have to say Colorado or, say Colorado.
William, I've got a question about EVMatch. So say somebody's got a gate at their property, and then people have to come in and plug it in from the garage or whatever. What are your policies around that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's definitely the type of information that they would put in the private charger access. So if you're making the listing, you have a field for public charger information. So, is it close to downtown? Is it close to coffee shops? And then there's a field for private charger access information. So that might be gate code is 1234. And that would be provided to the driver after they've reserved and paid to use the charger.
Now, what if there is no way to open the gate locally, and you have to contact the owner, who then opens it via the internet? Or if they happen to be home from inside the house, is that acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, a lot of flexibility in terms of how the host wants to communicate with the driver. So the two of them, we don't currently have in-app messaging. Definitely another feature that we're working on. But we provide phone numbers. The expectation is that the phone numbers are text or phone call worthy, and they can communicate that way. Typically, I would say hosts probably avoid, listing a charger that has too complicated of access instructions. We haven't seen really complicated access instructions to this date, but we have seen a variety of things where you might have to, find a key somewhere, or talk to someone on a camera, those sorts of things.
Now, does the host have to give a phone number, or is that required for the driver to be able to call them or text them?
That is required at this time. It's required for both the driver and the host.
And I'm curious, have you ever gotten feedback that people don't want to share, say, a phone number? And they'd rather, just have it be through the process, say if the access isn't an issue.
We haven't really gotten that feedback, but I know that it's a general user preference that you can just do in-app messaging, right? I would far prefer that. I was an Airbnb host for a long time, and some guests would just text me, right? And I would much prefer they were just messaging me through the app. So we're very aware of that. At this point, when you sign up for EVMatch, regardless of what you plan to do on it, you're entering a phone number. So that information is captured immediately.
Okay.
Well, it looks like we pretty well covered it. There were a lot of questions and no dead air, as they would say in the radio business. So we sure appreciate you, William, taking the time to come and talk to us and fill us in on all these little details about EVMatch.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was a great time. Thanks everyone for having me. And yeah, feel free to get in touch with me, William at evmatch.com, if you have any questions. And hope to see you on the network.
Okie doke. Well, thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
I think that
Have a
about
great
does it for-
weekend.
Thanks, everyone. That was a lot of fun.
See you all.
Cool. Thanks.
Hey, are we having a picnic? I'm sorry, I haven't read my newsletter. I don't retain information these days.
Yeah, we're having a
Yes.
we're having a barbecue. It's going to be on the 21st of
August.
August,
Let me see.
Yeah.
if-
and it's going to be up in Rawlinsville at the Electromod Garage.
Oh, at what
Mhm.
time? Oh, yeah. It's
Yep.
not on my
Should be
calendar.
cool, right? I'm looking forward to it.
What time?
Yeah, it's going to be from
And
1 to 4, I believe it is. I'd have to check my newsletter. I don't memorize them. I just put them out.
I'll check.
But yeah, I think if I remember right, it's page 9 or 10
Okay.
in the newsletter.
4.
4.
Page 4, okay.
But bring your fishing pole.
Oh, yeah?
So a nice drive to the mountains next month.
Uh-oh.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I
See you
think
next.
that's it. Okey doke. I guess I'll pull the plug and we'll all go about our Saturday activities.
Okay, bye.
All
All
right,
right, good to
bye.
see you guys.
ya.
You guys. Thank you, David.
You bet.